I also run 2 small businesses, and it was really hard to step back, hard to lose the excitement and momentum of the live summer series, hard to delay my new podcast, hard to know I was not showing up fully for my therapy clients or my consultation group members, hard to put my Facebook community on hold so I could be away from social media, hard to miss out on participating in the exciting promo for the incredible Therabundle that my friend Tamara Howe put together last fall, which was amazing, hard to know I was losing income. So let me share some lessons learned. Make sure you have set aside income for unexpected life situations. Welcome to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. Hi, I'm Janine Wolf, and I'm your colleague down the hall. I have a passion for helping fellow therapists get the clinical and collegial support we all need to do this work. And wow, it just keeps getting harder every day. I'm the founder and facilitator of the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. I have been a social worker for almost 30 years, and I own a successful solo online private practice. More of us than ever are practicing in solo or online practices, and we all need colleagues to process cases with, commiserate with on those really hard days, and also to celebrate our successes with. In this podcast, I'll bring you insights about trends and changes in our field and sit down with amazing therapists who are doing amazing work. We'll discuss fictionalized cases, ways to practice sustainably, and of course, there will be plenty of laughing. I love laughing with friends. I'm so glad to have you as one of my colleagues down the hall. Hello, everyone. You are listening to another episode of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. I'm your host, Janine Wolf. I want to talk to you today about an experience that happened in my life last year that impacted my work, and something that I feel like we don't discuss enough in our field, the way that our personal lives impact our work and how our work impacts our personal lives. Last June and July, I hosted a series of live clinical consultation groups based on fictionalized cases. I wanted to show that therapists could get together and have respectful conversations and disagree and share opinions and theoretical orientations and discuss cases in a supportive way, which is not something we often see in the therapist Facebook groups. Those were supposed to be the beginning of the launch of my podcast, Calling Down the Hall, which you're listening to today. Unfortunately, the emergency hospitalization of my dad, who had been living with frontotemporal dementia for 3 years, led to his admission into home hospice. So my 2 sisters and I decided that we needed to move in with our parents to help my mom care for my dad. And I know this is something that not everyone had the ability to do. There were special circumstances that allowed my sisters to be able to do this. And I am fortunate that I work for myself and do online work, so I could still do the bare minimum and have plenty of time with my family. If you followed me for a while, you know that I began my career working in pediatric hospice. I had now come full circle with me being on the receiving end of this extraordinary type of medical care. I send lots and lots of love out to those working in the hospice field and the related fields of dementia, death, dying, and grief. So even though there was a lot at stake work-wise, I knew this time was priceless for our family. It was precious and bittersweet all at the same time, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Looking back, I can say that it only lasted 4 months, but during that time, it was both physically and emotionally exhausting, and we truly had no idea how long my dad would live. And if you aren't familiar with frontotemporal dementia, it's like being on a roller coaster. One day we were sure it was his last, and the next day he wanted us to get him out of bed, take him to the kitchen, and feed him chili cheese dogs and ice cream. And he would argue with us about why he wasn't allowed to drive, even though he couldn't walk independently. And with frontotemporal dementia, we could have medications that were treating symptoms and keeping him comfortable, and they would work for a week or 2, and then nothing was working, and it was an experiment over and over. So it's a very different type of dementia and very challenging. But I also run 2 small businesses, and it was really hard to step back, hard to lose the excitement and momentum of the live summer series, hard to delay my new podcast, hard to know I was not showing up fully for my therapy clients or my consultation group members, hard to put my Facebook community on hold so I could be away from social media, hard to miss out on participating in the exciting promo for the incredible Therabundle that my friend Tamara Howe put together last fall, which was amazing, hard to know I was losing income. So let me share some lessons learned. Make sure you have set aside income for unexpected life situations. If you've taken my 4 Keys to Private Practice workshop, you know that I teach this very thing. Make sure you have family and friends, but also colleagues who can support you when the unexpected happens. Make sure you have a plan for your therapy clients and other businesses if you need to take an extended leave of absence from your work. Make sure you allow space to prioritize the really important things in your life, even when it's hard. And that was so incredibly hard because we don't have that crystal ball about what's going to come down the road. Give yourself the grace that sometimes you'll need to pivot in your plans, and that is okay. At the time, I hope the years of work I invested in growing my therapy practice as well as my clinical consultation groups would allow me to rebound when the time came. I was stepping out on faith and the wise words of colleagues on that one, but again, it was incredibly scary. And I have to be honest, after my dad's death, it was incredibly hard to get my excitement back and get back into any sort of work routine. I came to realize through grief coaching with the incredible Jill Johnson-Young and my work with some other colleagues and friends, so much of this was related to my relationship with my dad, who was the original entrepreneur in our family. In upcoming episodes, I'll be talking to Jill as well as some of the colleagues who helped me through the beginning of my grief journey. Thanks for allowing me to share this very vulnerable part of my life with you. I hope it supports you or inspires you in some way. As colleagues, we need to talk about how to normalize the impact that our lives have on our work and our work has on our lives. We have so many areas in our work that are complex that impact us as human beings, and we really need to normalize and have these conversations. I hope you have someone you can have these conversations with in your life. Thanks for listening. There are new episodes of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast released every Thursday on all major platforms. Please remember, our work is hard, but it doesn't have to be lonely.
Thank you so much for listening to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to colleaguedownthehall.com, where you'll be able to learn more about getting the clinical support you need and resources to help you work in a supported, sustainable way. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your therapy friends and colleagues. Subscribe to the podcast, and if you love this episode, please leave a review.